was dense, detailed, and informative, and that is exactly the setting that I wanted to start this conversation. Because if we've tried this before, right? It's been 140 years, we've tried this before, and if we want to do it right, it's got to be data informed, it's got to be community engaged, it's got to be a real process, it's got to have our voices heard. So that's what we're going to be starting with today. Come on down. All right. So I want to introduce our illustrious panelists as they make their way up onto the stage. From immediately to my left here, former County Councilwoman Hazel Irby, now the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at St. Louis County. Let's give her a round of applause. Sitting next to her, Captain Perri Johnson, Commander of the 6th District of the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. Sitting next to him, Andrea Benjamin, PhD, Assistant Professor of Political Science at the University of Missouri-Columbia. Wesley Bell, Prosecuting Attorney Secretary. My first question, Forward Through Ferguson has set a goal of achieving racial equity in St. Louis by the year 2039, 25 years after the killing of Michael Brown. If we believe that the right kind of city-county governmental reform might be able to help us move toward that goal, or if we just want to ensure that any kind of reform that happens at least doesn't hinder progress on that front, what I'd like to ask you is, what are the most important issues and considerations that any attempt at city-county reform must address with respect to equity and political representation in criminal justice?
I think my biggest issue is the police, the status of how policing, I should say. I think that's one of the most important issues right now that we are dealing with, because our community, we continue to see the same things happen that happened during the Michael Brown, I call it tragedy. We hear about it so often, and I think that we have to get a handle on that. And once we do that, I think mostly that I think about this often, so bear with me. It's about respect, and it's about communication. We have to show respect to our community, to the people in our community, and somehow we have to get that through. And I know we have more, I believe, more good police officers than we do the ones who are out there causing problems. Somehow we have to make sure that there's a climate within the police department that says everybody deserves respect.
You have to have a balance between enforcement and engagement and transparency. And when you start talking about engagement versus enforcement, you have to train officers to be able to look through that lens. And that's something that has to come from the top down and be pushed throughout departments and get them to understand that. That has to pair with your hiring practices, and you have to look at exactly who you're hiring and what type of people are you hiring. Because we can't continue to hire the people that we've hired 10, 15, 20 years ago, because that doesn't work. Because police work has changed in the last 5, 10 years. It's really changed. It's a different type of climate out there, and it has to be approached in a different way. And you have to have the right people that can do it. It's easy to teach somebody to lock somebody up, but can you teach somebody to go out there and relate and talk to people that don't look like them, that don't come from that same community? That's where you start to make the progress. And when you tie that within, you tie that into being transparent, where you don't have anything to hide, and you say, hey, you know what, I'm gonna teach you to go out here and treat people fairly, treat people like you want to be treated, and just be fair.
But I want us to shift towards what we call substantive representation. What are the policies that are coming out of these bodies, right? And so when we look at some of the data that Cristina shared, it is not looking good. And we only have ourselves to blame because we felt like voting was enough. It is not enough. But demographics aren't destiny, right? And we know that because Cristina told us it was 1993 before this city elected its first black mayor. New York has only had one black mayor. Chicago just got a second black mayor this year. So having black people in your city doesn't guarantee the descriptive representation that you need or want. What we need to do is focus on the substantive representation. How affordable is our housing? How is our relationship with our police department? Those are the things that you care about, and you elect people because they say, I'm gonna fix it. Ooh, it's not fixed. We don't actually know what these people are doing day to day. There's no data set, right? At the congressional level, there are measures, and we can say, oh, this person is liberal, this person is conservative, we know how they're voting. That data is non-existent at the local level. So again, if we shift towards what are the policies coming out, that will be the true question of representation.
When I look at, what is most important, I kind of look at that question in two different ways. One being people need to feel that their voice is heard and that they are actually represented. And that means getting out into the community and showing up at events like these and hearing from constituents, because that's how you develop your policy. This is a hard job to do, and it's impossible to do it alone. When I look at people that I saw as a younger person, people like Hazel Irby, who showed up at these kind of events and heard from her constituents, that's the kind of example that I follow, and I want to make sure that I'm hearing from you. And so people's voices need to be heard, and you're right, they have to show up. We need to show up at events. It can't be, well, we voted, we got that person in, okay, see you in 4 years. Can't work like that. I need to see you in 4 days, so as we start implementing policies, I have people at the council meeting who have my back.